folks out in Oregon felt so bad that they raised money and presented her with $5,000. Although this was meant as a gift, Mrs. Canby treated it as an interest-free loan instead. So she supplemented her income with the interest from the $5,000, but she willed that the principal be returned to the people of Portland upon her death. Louisa Hawkins Canby was buried beside her husband in June of 1889. Nearly 4 years later, a Confederate veteran organizing a reunion of the Sibley Brigade wrote to the War Department asking for help in locating Louisa Canby. Not realizing that she was deceased, he explained, quote, "I wish to show her we still entertain kind remembrance and esteem for her by inviting her to our reunion."
Well, General Canby was well thought of in Oregon for the service that he did when he was in Oregon. He was there for at least 3 years, and in recognition of his assassination, the Canby Cross was erected in 1880 in an area which would now be known as the Lava Beds National Monument in Northern California. There are towns out there called Canby in Oregon. In fact, I looked it up on the map, and it's just south of Portland, Oregon, and there's a town there called Canby, and there's also Canby, Minnesota, and Canby, California, which were named for him. And from the Canby Historical Society's website, we learned that their city, situated in North Williamsville Valley in Oregon, is the only place that is named for General Canby during his lifetime. On the north side of the mouth of the Columbia River in Washington State stands Fort Canby Lighthouse on what is originally called the Fort Canby State Park. It has now been renamed Cape Disappointment State Park. And I know Bruce did a presentation of the Lewis and Clark expedition, and if you remember, when Lewis and Clark got to the end of the Columbia River, they built a fort during that winter, and it was called Cape Disappointment. And they've now renamed this point at the mouth of the Columbia River now, Cape Disappointment State Park. And during the time when, for many years, cannons were actually mounted there on that point. And here's a picture I got off of the website showing that one of the cannons that were in place to protect the mouth of the Columbia River. And I understand that this was used as late as during the Second World War, because they were concerned the Japanese might try to attack. So they did maintain some gun placements at that time. And you might imagine Hollywood did seize on Richard Canby's story. The movie Drumbeat, starring Charles Bronson as Captain Jack and Alan Ladd, is based on the assassination of General Canby. Here in Boone County, a historical marker has been erected in front of the old East Bend Methodist Church. And of course, on one side, it tells about Piatt's Landing, but on this particular side, it has the inscription about General E.R.S. Canby. And as you can see, it says in the cabin at East Bend, Brevet Major General Edward Richard Sprigg Canby was born November 9th, 1817, a West Point graduate, 1839. He accepted the final surrender of the Confederacy from Generals Richard Taylor and Kirby Smith in Alabama and Louisiana in May 1865, and he was killed in California at a peace conference with the Modoc Indians, April 11th, 1873.
Now, this next picture is a portrait of General Canby, and that hangs in the wall in the halls of West Point, from which he graduated. It's also available in the Library of Congress, and so we downloaded it in a digital format, hoping that there would be some way that we could find to memorialize General Canby here in Boone County, the place of his birth. Again, he was the only Boone County native son to have ever reached the rank of general. And so we'd like to also give thanks to Bruce Ferguson for helping us. In fact, he gave us the idea when we were working on the Piatt's Landing program. Bruce said, you know, there's enough information about General Canby out there, that'd be a program in itself. And so here it is. And we'd also like to thank Pat Gianarella and the entire library staff for being so helpful and helping us get this presentation ready with all the computer and everything else. We appreciate that, Pat. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Does anyone have any questions for me?
Did the wealthy aunt ever come through?
I don't know. We never had any record. But his name was, he was named after her, so hopefully she gave him a little something.
Any other questions?
How old was he when he left Boone County? The Indiana plant?
6.
Well, he left Boone County when he was about 3 years old in 1820. But he frequently came back to Boone County. In fact, the time when he was in serving in the War of Mexico, his wife came back to Boone County to live with family here during that time. And after Dr. Canby passed away, Dr. Canby's wife came back to Boone County to live. So Boone County was considered home. They frequently came back.
I considered Boone County because he's in the book.
That's right.
That's right.
All right, any other questions?
Yeah, who nominated him for West Point? Somebody has to nominate
You
you.
nominated him for West Point.
Somebody official.
I'm not sure. We didn't have that
I
record.
didn't know if it was Kentucky, Indiana, probably Indiana.
There's probably a record of it up at West Point. And in fact, we even considered going up there to get the picture, then we found we could get it online from the Library of Congress.
Just to say, I mean, he was related to Jacob Piatt, who was a major during the Revolutionary War under Washington, one of the original members of society in Cincinnati. So Jacob Piatt lived here, so I mean, I'm sure he had some real connections.
Oh,
Yes.
That's where he got it.
Members of the Piatt family fought on the Confederate side, didn't they?
I'm sorry.
The Piatt family, I think, were Confederate sympathizers.
Oh, you know what? That happens so frequently across Kentucky. Kentucky was a borderline state, and so a lot of times you had brothers fighting against brothers. Virginia knows this, we've talked about it before. And this family, too, was torn. Some Confederate leaning, some toward the Union. And what a heartbreak that is.
One of the things I read when we were doing the research on this was I read something that Dr. Canby, when he left Boone County to go to Madison, Indiana, he was leaving partly because of he didn't like slavery. And when he sold his farms, he freed most of his slaves, and the others he sold with the farm when he moved to Madison, Indiana. And they said that many of those slaves that he had freed followed him to Madison and then stayed with him. And he provided housing for them when he was moved to Indiana. And that was partly because of his feeling towards slavery. And I believe this is partly why General Canby was strong in that feeling too.
Any other questions? All right, we appreciate that presentation. That was very interesting.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Don't forget, we have the pictures over here that Judge Froelich has brought. If you do have the opportunity to come Saturday to the rededication of the marker, remember that. And then Our next presentation will be May the 19th, and it's going to be Early Physicians and Medical Treatment in Boone County by Harold Victor Marksberry. Does anybody know him? Okay. All right, his mother was my 4th grade teacher. And he is real excited about coming. He has called me and came and visited me, and I have a rough draft of his presentation, and so he's still working on it. He's called Virginia Lane Hart and several other people. He said, I don't want anybody to fall asleep on me. So yeah, I think he's going to have a real interesting presentation. And I've known him since he was very young, and he was my physician at one time, as he may have been many of yours. So that'll be May the 17th, May the 19th. So everybody try to come for that. We appreciate so much your coming tonight, and this is a very special program due to the snow delay, and Steve and Betsy gave a very good presentation. Let's give them another round of applause.